Entry 1. It wasn't always like this. We used to be so happy, Pluto, Hayden, and I. We were the best of friends, all of us. We held a distaste for our own kind, and found a home in each other's company. So we formed our own misfit pack in the hills of the East. Hayden, as a lone wolf, was always on the run and was always so protective of Pluto and I, always taking point on our hunts. And Pluto, oh how I admired him. As a bat, he bore a striking resemblance to a male of my clan, but with the stark distinction of having wings. It was those wings that made me daydream of what it must be like to fly, and that admiration that had blinded me so completely to his madness. But then how could I have known it would end like this? How could any of us have known? After all, we were nothing more than a bunch of children, with nothing but pleasure on our minds and rebellion in our hearts. Until that evening, when we met the blue-eyed man who called himself the Sage of the Night and made that wretched deal. "My love has been lost to me," he said, "forever placed in the darkness beyond my grasp. But you creatures born of sententious wrath, you may enter those shadows and retrieve her for me." "What will we be given in return?" Pluto asked, having always harbored an infatuation with the darkness. "I will give you eyes that can see through the darkness and deceptions of this world, and strength so that you should never fear another beast again." The sage replied, "And should one of you succeed in your endeavor," he added, "I will ensure that you or one of your blood will always live here in this realm." The three of us backed away from the sage and whispered among ourselves. "Let's take the deal," Pluto said with a tone of excitement in his voice. "No, Pluto, we have done just fine so far on our own power," Hayden protested. "Besides, it would be horrible if only one of us could live forever," I added, thinking of never getting to see Pluto or go hunting with Hayden again. "Fine, so we do not keep our end of the deal. We can still take it and become powerful beyond our wildest dreams, Hayden. No more worrying about the wolves hunting you. No more having to protect us. No more fleeing for our lives," Pluto pleaded with a gleam in his eye. Hayden turned to me, and I am sure if I could have read him then I would have seen the flicker in his resolve, the reason he changed his mind. He loved me. So we made a pact of our own, that we would take the sage's gifts and never delve into those shadows. That day the moons turned a royal blue, and a mark to match them was given to each of us. We became true beasts when we used the mark's power, mindless brutes calmed only by each other's eyes. The other beasts of the eastern hills came to fear us and go out of the way to let us be. We were safe and we could have everything we had ever wanted. But we began to grow apart. Hayden returned to his pack. I guess he felt like I did not need his protection now, or maybe he had something to prove. And Pluto grew secretive, disappearing for days at a time. Then one day it was as if my dreams of him had finally come true. Pluto came to me and said he needed my help. He had found something truly beautiful and wanted to share it with me. So I went with him to a deep cave near the jagged eastern coast and saw something truly terrifying. It was as if there was something in the cavern pulling in the shadows cast by everything around it. Pluto took me inside and showed me what he had been doing all this time. He had broken our pact and found a way to free the sage's love. "Pluto, look at the shadows. Do you not feel that feeling of dread?" I said as I pulled away from him. "Lou, immortality awaits me on the other side of this portal. All I have to do is free the sage's love. But what about me?" I thought. But then I thought I was being selfish. After all, I loved him, and if anyone should live forever, shouldn't it be the one I love? "What do you need me to do?" My voice trembled. "Wait for me here. Be my tether to this world so that I do not get lost in this darkness." I reluctantly agreed and sat beside the black pool as Pluto entered in. I sat for what felt like days before I decided to go after him, fearing something had gone wrong. So I dove into the black abyss and found him straight away conversing with her, a woman pinned to the ground by a sword through her chest. I looked into her eyes as she stared into his, and saw the terror that I want to believe Pluto had missed. She was a monster like no being I had ever locked eyes with, breathtakingly beautiful, but what I could see in her heart chilled me to the bone. This place, where the darkness had tangible weight, was designed to hold her. And as I watched her past atrocities unfold in her eyes, she realized I was there and turned her attention to me. I would rather face 1,000 wolves than feel the terror I felt when her eyes met mine and Pluto reached for the sword that restrained her. I screamed and lunged at him, slamming him to the ground. "Let go of me, you wretch!" he yelled as he tried to break free of my grasp. "Pluto, no, she will destroy the world," I pleaded. "What do I care?" Pluto snapped back. "I will be immortal." "What about me and Hayden?" I demanded. "You both had your chance," he replied coldly as he kicked me in the face and broke free of my grasp. He spread his wings and made a grab for the sword, and I took a dagger from my hip and jumped on his back. Tears rolled down my face as I slashed his wings and then his back. He tried to throw me off, but before he could release the power of his mark, I used mine and tore him to shreds. With no one there to change me back to normal, I feared I would wander forever in this darkness. But without warning, I found myself again. I cried as I held Pluto's corpse. Then I turned to see the smile on her face. I clenched my fist and walked to her. "You will never leave this place as long as I live," I swore. She never spoke a word. She just watched with her sinister grin as I gathered up Pluto's tattered wings and left that place. When I returned, the cave had such a steady flow of shadows that the darkness there had taken on a weight of its own. I sealed that portal and collapsed the cave for good measure. Then I went to find Hayden. I did not have to go far. He had been drawn to the coast by the shadows being pulled in. "Hayden," I said with tears in my eyes, "Pluto is dead. He tried to stop me from opening the portal and freeing the sage's love, and I murdered him." "Lulu," Hayden growled as he began to advance on me. "Don't," I commanded, clenching the dagger in my left hand in case he did not buy my bluff. "I am immortal, Hayden, and I do not want to hurt you." "How could you, Lulu? He was your friend," Hayden said as he and the rest of the wolves circled me. I held tight to Pluto's torn wings and looked down at the blood that soaked my hands as my heart broke at what I had to do next, and my sorrow was only made worse by the fact that Hayden could never know the truth. "Leave, Lulu, and never let me see your face again." I could only nod as tears streamed down my face. I dropped Pluto's wings and turned to a fox to flee the eastern hills. Entry 2. Today I found my way to the land of dragons. Everything is so flat. I have never been so far inland, and I want to keep going to make sure I never cross paths with Hayden again. I am going to miss him dearly, and it pains me when I think of how blind I had been despite these eyes. I can read the hearts of all men, so why could I not read him? I passed many ruins in my travels to the dragon's great city, all of them former monuments to the ancient religion. The inhabitants of this land don't seem to care much for the three mothers and the religion of old. Hunting here is much harder than in the hills of the coast. Though the lesser clans seem to have gotten lazy, they are protected day and night by the clans of giant scales with hardy drakes and swift wyverns on constant patrol. The people here are very fond of high walls and tight-knit homes as well, so getting one of them away from the crowd in the streets adds to the difficulty. The alleyways and constant presence of ale make it slightly easier to do under the cover of darkness. I learned quickly it is better to lure them in the cities where they are at ease than to hunt in the open countryside, which is mostly barren, save travelers from one city to the next. My first day in the strange land, I passed by a group of what the scales called beasts of the field. Anyone who hunts and kills their lessers is swiftly met with sententious justice in the form of the flame. I suppose freedom is a small price for them to pay for the safety and stability the dragons offer them. But I would rather enjoy my dangerous freedom than succumb to the whim of another. Thank Trua for these eyes. Without them, I fear I might starve or worse yet get caught and meet the ashy fate of the poor souls I passed on the road. I believe I will travel in my human form for the duration of my time here. Entry 3. I made it out of the land of dragons. I finally dared to take my fox form and take in the smells, feel the wind blowing my fur, and the warm sand between the pads of my paws. I would have never imagined there was a place like this. A desert with sand as far as the eye can see. A while back I met a kind fox named Isosceles from the north. I have taken to calling him Soul, and like me, he came to the desert to hide from his past. His fur is so white, it is such a stark contrast to the blacks, grays, blues, purples, and browns of my kin. I imagine I must look strange to him as well with my violet fur. After all, he's from a land of snow and ice. I have not told him I can read his mind yet, and it is very entertaining. The adventures he has had on the Western Sea, and the things he has seen with his shimmering green eyes are amazing, and I find myself getting lost in those memories in an effort to forget my own. I have also neglected to tell him I am with his pup. As the sage's words rattle around my mind, I wonder, will my child bear this curse as well? He has a pup and a mate he left behind in the mountains, and sometimes when he looks at me I know he thinks of them. The other fox of the desert do not take to us very well, but I imagine it is because of how scarce things are here and how different we are from them. I have trouble imagining why anyone would stay here willingly if not to hide, and I feel there is something sinister on the winds here, but I cannot place it. To the west is a vast canyon, but to even get there would be a dangerous journey. The prey lands here are scarce, and the predator clans, though small and few as they may be, are not very forgiving. Soul talks about traveling to the forest in the south. I can see it in his eyes. We are both running from wolves. Entry 4. I am exhausted. My body has performed its greatest miracle, and today my son was born. To my delight, he has his father's eyes. His fur is a metallic gray, almost silver, and so fine. It looks like he will have his father's white coat. The mark of the sage is present on his head, as well, meaning I was right about the curse being carried in my bloodline. I will have to teach him to control his power as I control mine. Zion. That sounds like a fine name. My heart melts when he looks up at me and wraps his tiny hand around my finger. He's calm for a newborn, but when he wakes he's constantly looking around. I pray he never loses that wide-eyed wonder. It is funny reading a newborn. His thoughts are so simple. Hungry, tired, happy, and my personal favorite. What's that? I have not seen Soul for a few days. Now I am sure he's out hunting. I can't wait for him to meet our son. Entry 5. Soul is dead. I could see it in the eyes of some strange wolves I encountered today. Zion and I were hiding from them while chasing rabbits, and I caught a glimpse in one of their eyes. They did not seem to have any ill will toward him. More like they killed him for sport. I hope I can share some of his memories with Zion, if not for Soul then for Zion's own good. I pray he leaves this place someday and sees the world as his father did. The weather here is so unforgiving. Water is scarce, and the lessers here are so fast and quick-witted. What's worse, I will have to leave Zion alone while I hunt. I have found a small village of the native fox, and I have made a den on the outskirts. It doesn't offer much comfort, but at least he won't be completely alone, though sometimes I wonder if that would not be better. I often look up at the moons at night and wonder if Hayden is somewhere looking up at them as well. Did he ever find the love he sought from me? I wonder. What would my life be if I could have read the desire in his eyes? This is not to say I don't miss Soul, but I will see him every day in Arson's eyes. I know in my heart I saw Hayden for the last time on that hillside so many moons ago. Entry 6. Zion has started hunting for days at a time now. He's so different from the other fox of the desert, and does not bother with them much. I heard another fox say that he got in a heated scrap with one of them over a rabbit. I have trained him well, thankfully, and very seldom does he lose control of the demonic strength granted by the curse he's inherited. It is hard to imagine containing that kind of power at his age, but the control he exercises makes me feel like he has a kind heart. I have considered chasing Saul's dream of going to the southern forest, but it is so far, and the desert is all Zion has ever known. I have used our ability to read each other to give him memories of his father. Though they have never met, he will not forget Soul. It is the least I could do for them both. I have also warned him to stay away from the east lest he run into Hayden or one of his descendants, and to be wary of wolves in general. I could have never imagined all those years ago as I dashed through the valleys and hills of my home that this would be my future. That Hayden, Pluto, and I would ever part ways, much less that I would be hunted by one of them. I had dreamed of settling with Pluto somewhere in the mountains of the red clay. I never imagined I would have a child because of the differences of our clans. But here I am, with my son in this strange land. When I look into those shimmering green eyes and feel the warmth staring back at me, I am at peace with my choice. Entry 7. Today I doomed this world, forever cursing it for its cruelty. Once I murdered my love to spare the world a dark fate. But today my son came to me with a love of his own, a woman from the rabbit clan named Bonnie. She was cursed by a snake and dying for breaking a deal she made with it. Zion begged me to save her life, but he was blinded by love as I had been before him, and did not see that she had birthed his child in secret, nor the deal she made with the serpent to make it happen. I could see the serpent through her eyes, and I found that feeling of dread that I felt upon my arrival to the desert again. The clever basilisk had planned to destroy all life here in the desert. In that moment I wondered what life would my grandson have. A fox with a rabbit mother, and a frail one at that. She would never recover from this curse, and if she lived, she would burden Zion for the rest of his days. So I made a cruel decision and damned this world. I sent Zion to free the woman in the darkness that had driven Pluto to madness, and take the immortality the sage promised me. Once he was gone, the rabbit begged me to end her suffering, and though it pained me to orphan my grandson, I granted her request and broke her neck. The pup and I are resting together now. It took me hours to find him. I have to give his mother credit, she did a wonderful job of hiding him. He has his mother's maroon hair and his father's shimmering green eyes, and just below his hairline, and much to my dismay, he bore a small blue mark. I lulled him to sleep and made a small fire. Tonight I will honor the young rabbit's sacrifice. Entry 8. The same serpent clan that is responsible for the birth of my grandson has turned the desert into an uninhabitable wasteland. We have not seen the rain in years, and hunting during the day means certain death. I fear I have lost my son. It has been years now, and he has not returned. I have raised Oliver as best I could. I try to encourage him to be friendly with the other fox for fear of him being alone in this world when I am gone. I cannot wait for you much longer, my son. The clans are growing restless, and I fear that no matter how perilous the journey, before long we must flee to the forest. The desert is no longer safe. Entry 9. These will be my last words before returning to the Nether. If you find this, I love you, my son. Be kind and forgive me for leaving Oliver this way. Maybe I will see you soon so that I can tell you myself. I wonder if Hayden is still alive, or will Soul be there to greet me somewhere in the darkness? No, I died for you, Oliver. Please do not waste your life. An old man with sandy fur stood alone in the night, his hand outstretched to a snowy white fox offering the tattered blood-stained diary. This book was found with Lulu's bloody body. She held onto it so tightly her claws dug into its bindings. She had been ravaged by her battle with the wolves that saved the Desert Fox clan, and she died clutching this book. The old man paused and broke his gaze with the white fox as he looked away with a feeling of shame. We treated her as an outcast, and in the end she saved us all. Please give this book to the boy when he comes of age. I will, Lily replied as she took the torn and blood-stained book from the Desert Fox elder. Come on, Ollie, it will be dark soon. A small maroon-haired fox ran to Lily. He rubbed up against her legs, and she changed into a fox herself, and the two of them dashed off into the night.